Everyone, remain calm.
Yeah, that's how it always starts. And later there's running and screaming.
Somebody talk to me! What is happening?
Welcome to Jurassic World.
You're listening to the Jurassic Park Podcast.
You want to consult here or in my bungalow? Hold on to your butt.
Well, we're back.
Hello, and welcome to the 16th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Jost, and we're here to discuss all things Jurassic Park. In this episode, we'll keep the news light because we're going to head into the Visitor Center, where I chat with Sabrina and Garret from I Know Dino, the Big Dinosaur Podcast. We had a great conversation about dinosaurs, their podcast process, and their thoughts on the Jurassic Park franchise. And following that, I'll wrap it up with a listener segment, featuring some voicemails and online responses. Let's get things started off with a bit of Jurassic news from around the world.
18 minutes and your company catches up on 10 years of research.
Access main program. Access new security.
These pictures were taken in hospital in Costa Rica 48 hours ago.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Today, I guarantee it.
So you know how Jurassic World is currently sitting at number 3 on the all-time list of top-earning films? Well, TulsaWorld.com wants to put us all in our place by pointing out the fact that Jurassic World currently sits in 28th place when it comes to tickets sold. Jurassic World currently has sold over 75.2 million tickets. Sounds pretty big, right? Well, coming in at number 1 with over 200 million tickets sold is Gone with the Wind, which also holds the number 1 spot for ticket earnings adjusted for inflation. So I'm sorry for deflating your Jurassic ego a bit, but I think Universal and all the fans can be proud that no matter what, Jurassic World is still one of the most successful films of all time. You can find a link to the article in the show notes. DailyMail.co.uk posted an article featuring pictures by photographer Seth Lawless, who recently journeyed into the past by visiting the abandoned Michigan theme park, Prehistoric Forest. The pictures feature some creepy dinosaur props that are still standing, and you also get a glimpse into some of the structures inside the park. You know, it's too bad this park didn't stand the test of time, because despite the apocalyptic vibe it's giving off now, it kind of looks like a cool place. Take a look at the link in the show notes to find all the pictures. MovieMistakes.com has compiled a list of mistakes comprised of plot holes, continuity errors, audio problems, and assortment of other issues. Jurassic World comes in with 18 mistakes, which makes it the leader so far for 2015, ahead of Terminator Genesis with 10 and Mad Max with 8. So go ahead and take a look at the link in the show notes to find a list of those mistakes. Let us know what you think about them, because we may end up covering this on an upcoming episode, so I'd love to know what you think. We have 2 birthdays to celebrate here. The first one is Frank Marshall, the producer of Jurassic World and probably more of your favorite films. He celebrated his birthday on Sunday the 13th of September. And today, September 14th, is Sam Neill's birthday. Alan Grant has barely aged, and we'd love to see him back taking on dinosaurs in the sequel. Happy birthday, guys. In a bit of sad news, over the weekend we got word that Alan Purwin, a pilot who has worked on Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic World, has perished in a plane crash. Purwin, along with Carlos Brell, were fatally injured during the plane crash in the Colombian mountains, shortly after production wrapped on a new Tom Cruise film called Mina. Along with the Jurassic films, Purwin worked on a ton of other movies and will surely be missed within the industry. You can find a link to the CNN article in the show notes.
You know the first attraction I ever built when I came down from Scotland? It was a flea circus, Petticoat Lane. Really quite wonderful. We had a wee trapeze and carousel. And a seesaw. They all move, motorized, of course, but people would say they could see the fleas. Oh, I can see the fleas, Mummy, can't you see the fleas?
Clown fleas and high wire fleas and fleas on parade. But with this place, I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion. Something that was real. Something that they could see and touch. A name not devoid of merit.
Let's open up the doors to the Visitor Center, where I discuss dinosaurs, Jurassic Park, and more with Sabrina and Garret of I Know Dino, the Big Dinosaur Podcast. So I'm joined by Sabrina and Garret this week from I Know Dino, the Big Dinosaur Podcast. And we came across each other on Twitter, I think this week, and decided to do a little bit of a crossover episode and talk about dinosaurs and Jurassic Park. And these two certainly know a ton about dinosaurs, so I highly suggest listening to their podcast. It's really awesome. I'd like to start off my interviews with one of the toughest questions I can think of. So you two, are you ready?
Yep.
So you're trapped in a kitchen with a raptor. What do you do?
What type of raptor are we talking? Is it like Jurassic Park style?
Yeah, we're gonna go with the film style.
Ooh. So let's see. In that movie, they do the thing where they hide. I don't think I could fit. You could probably hide.
Garret is 6'3". I'm 5'2". So
yeah, you're not fitting in any kind of cabinets or anything.
I'd vote for Sabrina hiding, and then I guess I would just try to run.
Okay, look for the nearest freezer, maybe.
Yeah,
freezer. You think you can outrun them?
Well, it's gonna have to react to me starting to run. So in the meantime, hopefully, it's looking the other way, and then I can get a little head start on it.
Maybe throw something in a different direction, throw them off.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, it sounds like you guys will get out. I think you'll be safe. You know, you might have to hide for a while. Who knows how long they're going to linger in that kitchen? I don't know.
If they kill me, then she'll be able to sneak out.
Oh, that's sad though.
You're going to be the bait, aren't you?
Yeah.
That reminds me of there's a Sesame Street made a Jurassic Park version with Cookie Monster.
In the kitchen.
In the kitchen scene specifically.
Oh, man.
So if it was anything like that, the T-Rex was actually a giant gingerbread cookie. And then Cookie Monster hugs it and realizes it's a cookie and then tries to eat it.
Well, let's hope your scenario is like that, because I don't know if you want to go hug those raptors too much.
That's true.
So, on to the real questions. What got you guys into dinosaurs?
Ooh, for me, I think it was Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the same for me.
We're actually, so we got married last year and we had a dinosaur-themed wedding.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks. And, my dad gave a whole big speech like, what's with the dinosaurs? And he cited Land Before Time for me.
Yeah, I think that was the first thing. And then just deep into lots of books. Because especially as a kid, I think it was Jack Horner was talking about why kids are so into dinosaurs. And he was saying because they were big and there were so many different kinds of them. And they're not around anymore. So it just like really gets your imagination going, all the different types and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what sucked me in.
Jurassic Park, too, for sure.
Jurassic Park was also
Oh,
good.
yeah. You can't get away from that. That's awesome. No, but I agree, though. I think it's the imagination to it all. You know, you imagine these giant creatures and with the claws and the teeth and the scales or whatever they have. And it's awesome to imagine. And I think that's definitely a good reason, definitely. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about your podcast?
Oh,
all right.
Go ahead.
So there are basically two big parts to it. We'll go through all the news, and the news, I guess the news is several things. So we'll do, the main thing I do is I'll go through the scientific journals and the like heavy duty, what color were feathers and how exactly we can figure out what color they were and which scientists agree with that and all this kind of heavy research stuff.
Yeah.
And then the lighter news, which is like
Sesame Street and Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
yeah, or the pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing that we do is we do like a dinosaur of the day every podcast. So we did, what was the most recent one?
Stegosaurus.
Yeah, and Sabrina basically does all that, as you can tell by me asking.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of requests lately from listeners, which is awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so next week's is Stearic Asaurus, and that's requested from a listener who it's his favorite dinosaur, and he has this really awesome, intricate tattoo of it on his arm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sent a message that was something like, could you do one on Stearic Asaurus? It's really popular around here, with a picture of the tattoo.
That's awesome. So do you just kind of, uncover all the facts and just tell a bit about it?
A little bit of the history, how it was found, and then what we know about it. And then a lot of these dinosaurs are in the media in some way or another, so I like to mention where you can see them. Oh, also where in museums you can go.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts, is where you can actually see at least some of the bones of it, if not a big replica or an animatronic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a really cool aspect, because a lot of people want to see these things, in person, and that's definitely a cool opportunity to let everybody know. I like that a lot. So where can you, what's like one of the best places you can find dinosaur bones?
So our two favorites, I would say, there's the American Museum of Natural History in New York, is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's got a huge dinosaur hall and just tons of cool stuff. It was one of the two that was heavily involved in the Bone Wars, so they got a ton of dinosaur bones there.
Barnum Brown used to work there, so he gave them a lot of material.
Yeah. And then the other big one is Dinosaur National Monument, which is in Utah and Colorado on the border. And they have a big building that's kind of built around a cliff, and then a lot of the dinosaur bones are still in that cliff. So it's actually like partially excavated. It's a really awesome place to go.
Mm-hmm. You can actually touch some of the real fossils in the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the article about that recently, and then I heard you guys talking about it on, I think, maybe one of your last episodes, how they, what are they, preserving the land over there?
Yeah, they're thinking about making it a national park instead of a national monument, which...
It's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it means something. They said something about, like, they get more funding and it's a little bit more protected or something.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense then.
It matters to somebody.
Yeah. Well, if they're going to get more money, that's definitely the opportunity to take that and make it a national park, if that helps,
Yeah, I think that's really the motivating piece to it.
Yeah. So I got to go there and check that out. I think the nearest one to me is probably, New York. So I've been there a few times, and it's definitely some awesome stuff.
Well, you're in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
So there's, you can see Hattie.
Oh, yeah.
In, where was that?
Well, Hattie, so in Haddonfields, New Jersey, is where the Hadrosaurus was originally discovered.
It was the first North American dinosaur discovered.
Yeah, and it was the first one that was ever mounted on, like, a board with an outline of what they thought it looked like, or some such first. Mm-hmm. But this Boy Scout about 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, as his Eagle Scout project, decided to find the exact site where that dinosaur was discovered. And it's pretty cool because it's just at like the end of this residential street. There's like this big plaque that's like, here's where the first...
Yeah, it's just literally a park at the end of a street. You'd never guess. And apparently all the neighbors, the kids there, they trade dinosaur toys. They'll just leave them on this table here, and you can just borrow one whenever you want.
Yeah.
I gotta go check that out.
And then the actual Haddonfields dinosaur find is in
Philadelphia.
In the Drexel Museum of something or other in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I had no idea. I think I've heard of the name before, but Haddonfield, I used to live right around there, and I had no clue. Man, I missed out because I just moved. So.
Oh, well, we used to live in New Jersey. It's It's not too bad to drive.
No, definitely not. It's maybe about an hour from here, so I think I can make it.
Yeah. Garret made a really good map, actually. If you ever get a chance on our I Know Dino site, he mapped out all the good dinosaur museums in basically North America, mostly the U.S., but a little bit in Canada as well.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I got to check that out. That's awesome. Kind of find your nearest place.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the Jurassic Park films. What's your take on the films? How do you perceive them?
Well, we both love Jurassic Park, the first one.
Yeah.
That's given.
Yeah. The one thing, just to start out negative and then we can go positive. There was a line by one of the paleontologists who was talking about the movie, and he said, the original movie brought the science of the 1990s to a 1990s audience. So it was all the latest and greatest. The whole thing about the raptor, even calling it a raptor, was real kind of new and revolutionary thinking at the time. But then with Jurassic World, they were like, well, you're kind of bringing the science of the 1990s to a 2015 audience. Yeah. So it's a little annoying that they still do a lot of those like cliche things that we know aren't true, like not having feathers, or like some of the dinosaurs can't see you if you don't move, and some of that stuff. But
yeah, well, they kind of established their routine there, and they kind of, I guess they can't really stray from it. So I can't blame them, but I kind of, I can feel the hatred as to why people are upset about that, definitely.
Yeah, but overall, most paleontologists, and we tend to agree, overall, they're great movies, and they are entertainment. It's basically a monster movie, so you have to have certain weaknesses and certain strengths, and they have to have a certain appearance to them, so you can kind of appreciate that they don't want to make them feathery if people aren't as scared of that and things like that. So as long as people realize that that's not actually the way dinosaurs looked, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think they took that route with Jurassic World and tried to inform people that these creatures you see on screen are just monsters. They're genetically modified and they're not true to real life. So I'm glad they took that route, and hopefully people kind of picked up on that. But I think still, even after the movie debuted, everybody was on top of the movie. Like, why didn't they perceive them as the real things? Where were the feathers and stuff? But it's like you said, it's entertainment, and you kind of have to just go, for a popcorn flick, basically. So,
yeah, and we definitely liked the first three enough because we went to the earliest showing we could find in like a 50-mile radius.
Yeah,
7 p.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah, I think you beat me. I was 8 p.m. on a Thursday. Yeah. And my crazy part was, I just got married this year, too, in June.
Congrats.
On June 13th, and the movie came out on the 12th. So I actually went, I think, on the 11th, on that Thursday, and, we were actually not even in New Jersey. We got married in another state, so, I took some time and went to see the movie. So, if you're dedicated, you'll find time to go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what your interpretation would be, since you've got a specific view on how dinosaurs look. So I'm glad to see that you can appreciate the movies for what they are, even though they're not a realistic depiction of, raptors and other dinosaurs there. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and it isn't too far off because for a long time there was this whole tail dragging thing and all that, and Jurassic Park, we mentioned at one point, was the first real main movie to show dinosaurs moving quickly. So there's that scene where all the Gallimimus running through a field.
Bird-like too.
Yeah, and they're pretty bird-like, and they're hiding because they're running so fast. And it's kind of like, what was that movie, 28 Days Later, that had the first zombies running?
Oh.
Where it's just like a totally different thing. And when you saw it for the first time, you're like, wow, yeah, what if they did run fast?
Yeah. That's definitely a scary aspect of it. I mean, with those ones, you don't have to worry about it too much aside from getting trampled, I guess. But one of the cool things is they kind of recreated that scene in Jurassic World, and you get to see the Gallimimus again. And I think this time around, they actually look even more bird-like, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be, a thing with all the newer dinosaurs. They kind of, like we said, they didn't like put feathers on them and do all that stuff, but they tried to change them slightly. And I can see slight differences like with the Gallimimus and stuff like that. So it's cool that they sort of started to take that route.
Yeah. I think they gave a nod to birds too. What was it? One of the first scenes where it showed, was it a ring?
Oh, yeah, the movie opens, right, with a crow's foot or something like that.
Yeah, it just stomps down on that ice, and then it pans out, and you're like, it's just a crow.
Yeah, that was awesome. I like that.
Yeah, and I think they, with the Indominus Rex, if you looked at its feet, it really looked like that crow foot. It kind of replicated that a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a good job. And I don't even know if it was intentional, but when the raptor actors, they had all the guys doing the raptor motions, they did look a little bit bird-like. They were a little bit like twitchy and stuff, where I think in the first movie they were a little bit more like menacing and plotting, not as,
Yeah, I agree. They definitely had like more like a head bob kind of thing going for them. And they definitely had some subtle differences, these raptors versus the old raptors. Yeah. I'm not sure, I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is. I feel like these ones are maybe a little bit bulkier than the old ones, or bigger. I don't know what it is, but it's there's something slightly different about them, and you can tell.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Jurassic World? They introduced a different kind of plot line here with the hybrids and all that. So what do you think about mixing these different genes together and creating, a super dinosaur or a monster dinosaur?
I liked it. We actually got a chance to interview Jack Horner, which is awesome. And he's the paleontologist who consulted on all the movies. And so we asked him about, because he kind of gave the go-ahead for what he thought could and couldn't be possible, right?
Yeah, and he was actually saying that he was a little disappointed they didn't make Indominus Rex even more out there. Like, I guess he was the one that came up with the idea of it camouflaging. He really wanted that in there. Mm-hmm. And he wanted it to be, like, bulletproof and all this kind of stuff. And there's that, like, military aspect going on in that movie, so they could have done, like, a little bit more crazy stuff, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like their vision or something.
Yeah, I guess you can only go so far, if that thing starts to get shot and it's not getting taken down like right away. There was I think the helicopter shot when they got that giant gun on the helicopter. They're shooting it, but you can tell they're kind of missing. So they don't specifically make it too bulletproof, I guess.
Yeah, I liked it. It was interesting. One of the behind the scenes, they were showing some of the dinosaurs and how they were modeling. I think it was it a Brachiosaurus that was sick?
The Apatosaurus?
Oh, is it a Apatosaurus? Yeah. And they showed where they were modeling it, and then I guess the studio said, like, that's too small, you got to make it bigger.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
One thing, it's one thing I've noticed in basically all the movies, which is a lot of the things are pretty accurate, and they just scale it up like 50%. You're like, wow, that looks really big. And then you're like, actually, it looks a little too big.
Oh, man. Yeah, there's a few of them that look huge. Like, Spinosaurus, I feel like, just is so giant. And it's, I don't know, like, I think it changes perspective from scene to scene. I don't know if you've noticed that before in other movies even. They kind of like, it's this big in one scene, and then you go to another scene where it's kind of like a battle, and it's just 10 times bigger looking. And sometimes the perspective changes. I don't know what it is, but they always seem to do that with monster movies, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think the hybrid aspect worked? Did you have any problems with it, or was that kind of the type of dinosaur you'd think you'd see if you mixed all those variations together?
Sure. I mean, you could technically, I guess theoretically, you could make whatever you want. So if they had the technology to reverse engineer different animals into it, at that point you're basically science fiction. I'm kind of glad that they did a sci-fi take on it rather than trying to make up something that we know wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they originally had that Stegoceratops in there, right? And I think
they actually had it in there?
Well,
I didn't know.
No, well, sort of. I mean, it was on one of the screens when they were in one of the labs. You could see it on there. It was just a digital version of it. It wasn't like a picture or anything. But if they had included that, they made the toy. I feel like that would have been maybe a little too far, because the Indominus you can kind of see as like a real dinosaur. It's just out of control and a little violent. But, Stegoceratops, you kind of have to like put your imagination out there and just be like, okay, I believe it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. They kind of grounded it, even though it was, genetically modified and something different. But actually, that's really the aspect they've taken throughout all these movies, because none of them are really dinosaurs. They're all, genetically modified from the start.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Kind of along those lines, in the Jurassic Lego game, one of the things you can do is make your own dinosaur, your own genetically modified, and
nice.
Do whatever you want with it. So
it's pretty fun.
Garrett's favorite was, what was it? It's
got an Ankylosaurus tail on a Dilophosaurus body.
Yeah.
Or no, raptor body.
And a Triceratops head.
And a Triceratops head, which is really useful in the game because you can use the tail to bash stuff, you can charge at stuff with the horns, and then the raptors have these certain, like, smart animal things, like they can build the bricks. So, yeah, that one's really fun. And I made it chrome-colored, so it looks like a robot.
That's pretty awesome. I haven't gotten a chance to play that yet, so that sounds like a really cool aspect. I had no idea that was even part of it.
Yeah, that's fun. I am glad they cut out the what did you call it?
Stegoceratops, I think. Yeah,
Stegoceratops. We saw that too when the toy got announced or leaked or whatever. I was like, oh no, like Indominus Rex, okay, but why are they? Come on.
I mean, I got to say the toy looks pretty cool. I would have that here on my desk, but I didn't get a chance to pick it up. But when it comes to being in a movie, that's a completely separate story. That might look a little too ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think it's better than the route they could have taken. I don't know if you paid attention a few years ago before Jurassic World was even announced. This is probably going back a while. They were going to do the the human hybrid with the dinosaur. That was just terrible looking.
That sounds like it'd be painful to look at.
Yeah, it kind of was. I think there's some artwork or something floating around, and it's kind of painful to look at.
That sounds like what I imagine when I hear that is what was the third Mummy movie, The Scorpion King, when The Rock was combined with the giant scorpion?
Yeah.
And it was like the worst CGI ever of like The Rock's torso melding into this big monster.
Yeah, that was like 10 years after Jurassic Park came out, and they couldn't get it right. How could they not get that CGI right? That was literally the worst CGI I think I've ever seen.
So bad.
So bad. And of course, they had to throw in his little eyebrow wink or whatever he does,
Yeah.
It was sad. I enjoyed that movie, aside from that part, I guess.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to ask you guys a lot about the T-Rex. We know it's the same T-Rex in both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And what do you know about like the lifespan of a T-Rex? Do you know anything about that?
So what they say is that, I guess what they do when they look at a fossil is you can look at how spongy it is, basically.
Okay.
And if it's still kind of spongy, that means that it's still growing. And all the T-Rexes that they've found are still kind of spongy. So they say that they've never really found an adult T-Rex.
Interesting.
And yeah, so some of them are like, we don't really know how big they got. We know how big the ones we've found have gotten. And I think most of them are like late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The oldest ones. But a lot other dinosaurs lived up 100 or older. So it's kind of hard to say like how big they would have gotten and stuff. As far as like the way it looked, we know that it had feathers or proto-feathers at this point, or most likely, because other ones in its family that are really closely related had a lot of feathers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of glad they went the no feather route. Like we talked about before. Maybe would have looked a little corny. I don't know, corny, I guess, in the films. Without the feathers is more intimidating, more scary, like you mentioned. So, I'm glad they took that route, even though it's, inaccurate, I guess.
Yeah, they could have. I think if they did the right pattern on the feathers, they might have been able to make it look intense. Like you could do like black and white with like some crazy aggressive lines to it or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned the, you said the lifespan is late 20s or so. That's good because that kind of matches up here with Jurassic Park to Jurassic World, because that thing, I don't know, how old do you think it was in the, how long do you think it took to get that size in Jurassic Park? Do you have any idea?
What was it?
They did a comparison of T-Rex.
I think it was about 20 years.
Indominus Rex, yeah, and how
20 years approximate for full growth or nearly full growth.
Yeah, I mean that looks probably like nearly full growth, right? The original Rex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it could have been a few years old, I guess, at that point, and then you add another 22 years on top of that, and who knows? This thing could be pushing 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And I don't know, dinosaurs living in isolation because there was no other Rexes as far as we know on that original island. Do you think it would have been okay, like living on its own, or does it need somebody else? Does it need a mate or something like that?
There's been a lot of speculation over that, and whether or not they maybe hunted in packs or, even down to if they were more hunters or scavengers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They do think that they were probably pretty friendly parents because a lot of predators in general apparently are much better parents than herbivores because baby predators are seen as a threat by these herbivores, so they'll kind of kill them, and then also the predators have to teach their kids how to hunt because, plants it's pretty easy to figure out how to eat, but attacking an armored dinosaur with a tail that could kill you, maybe you mortally. It's a whole other story. So I think it probably could survive on its own and probably not be too depressed, I would guess. I mean, they weren't too much smarter than birds. So
there's some birds, though, that are sad if they don't have a mate.
Are there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think no matter who you are or what you are, if you're on an island for 30 years alone, that's got to be kind of depressing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know how they corralled that thing after the, the first island just, went to hell. I don't know how they corralled it and got it, back in the park in Jurassic World. So that must be an interesting side story I'd like to see somehow, maybe in like a TV show or a prequel or something like that. That'd be definitely interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys said that it likes to hunt, because that's one of the quotes from the first movie. They're trying to feed it the goat, and they say it doesn't want to be fed; it wants to hunt. So I guess that sounds about right. We're on the right track.
Yeah.
And when the thing fights, do you think that's an accurate depiction when it fought the Indominus Rex? Is that something you could see it taking on? Because Indominus was seen to be bigger and more violent and scarier. Do you think it could take on that Indominus Rex?
Well, that whole fight scene is basically, fantasy level of attacking. There's a lot. So basically, the T-Rex approach, from what it seems like, it's got these big teeth, and they're basically designed to crush and do a lot of heavy damage, and then possibly even just kind of run away afterwards and wait for the other thing to die.
Because it might have had kind of venom.
No, not venom. Could have had bacteria or something.
Bacteria.
Okay. But in any event, its technique was basically to take a huge chunk out of the enemy if it was going to attack, most likely. So there were a lot of times in that battle where T-Rex would get a big bite onto the other one's neck or something, and then it would kind of shake him off. So if that wasn't killing the other guy, if it wasn't killing the Indominus Rex, I don't think the T-Rex would have really had another move after that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a one-trick pony, It has that bite, but then it kept letting go, and it kept like throwing it or headbutting it even.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was probably probably wouldn't have made it. I don't even remember how that battle ended.
Mosasaurs.
But I mean, how did they get over there?
Oh, because they kept by fighting. I think they eventually pushed it towards the water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, there was that moment where the Rex, like, I was kind of like on the edge of my seat. I thought the Rex was done. The Indominus had it on the ground. It looked like it was dead. And then Blue, the raptor came out of nowhere and just attacked. And, somehow the T-Rex got its life back and just destroyed it at the end and just threw it all the way to that fence. And the Mosasaurus took it from there.
Yeah. There were also a lot of impacts going on there that probably would have broken some bones and maybe incapacitated one of them.
A lot of like throwing into buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
it was
I
definitely, not the type of atmosphere you'd imagine for a dinosaur battle, but it was awesome. I gotta say, that scene was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining. There was somebody was talking about why T-Rex didn't live so long, and one of the ideas is they seem to have a lot of broken ribs and things. Mm-hmm. So since they only have the two limbs and they're balanced right over their feet, kind of, they have the huge head, and that's also maybe why its arms shrunk. Because in order to get that huge head, you had to lose some other weight in the front so you don't topple over. But then it didn't have anything to break its fall. So if it's running and it trips, it could get mortally wounded and die pretty easily.
Oh.
So if that kind of thing is breaking its ribs, that crazy fight scene, it's like, come on, it would have just been like a puddle of broken bones by the end of that.
You might be able to excuse it, though, since it's genetically engineered. Maybe there's something else in there.
Its bones are made of... What are Wolverine's bones made out of?
Adamantium or something?
Yeah, adamantium.
That would be definitely an interesting take there. I could get behind that. Indestructible dinosaur.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe they'll take that route in the next film. They'll... make a huge shared universe and throw in the Wolverine movies and stuff like that, and then they'll take those things into battle with Jurassic War.
Well, isn't there a Marvel comic coming out called like Dinosaur Girl?
Yes.
Wow, is there?
I can't remember the title right now, but I
think it's Dinosaur Girl.
It might. Well, it's a girl and her friend / pet dinosaur.
Yeah, it's like a huge T-Rex or something.
Wow.
Or Moon Girl?
Moon Girl.
That's what it's called.
So she's a moon girl, but she has a pet dinosaur. Interesting.
Yeah. And she just wants to fit in, of course.
Yeah, well, I could see it being a little tough to fit in,
Literally, too.
Heyo.
Well, that's awesome, guys. Thanks for joining me today. I think we learned a lot. You guys know so much about dinosaurs. And I think I'd love to have you guys back sometime, when maybe there's some huge dinosaur news to discuss, or we know something more about the sequels here. That'd be an awesome opportunity to kind of get your feedback on dinosaurs. I love it. So where can anybody find you on the internet?
Oh, we both gestured to each other.
After you.
Yeah. Our website is on iknowdino.com. And that's where we have links to everything, but we're on Facebook, Twitter, Google, Pinterest. Oh, no, not Pinterest yet. Sorry. Tumblr. Yes, Tumblr. We're also, our podcast is primarily hosted on Libsyn, but you can find it on iTunes. That's the easiest. And also, I believe, Stitcher.
And TuneIn, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, and we also just launched a Patreon page, so patreon.com/IKnowDino, and that's we're giving kind of behind-the-scenes access to people who want to support us monthly or whatever they feel like doing. We try to give them some interesting things every month to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing. I've looked into that before, so your listeners can now get a little bit a sneak peek behind the scenes as to what's going on, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they can ask us questions. We let them know which dinosaurs we'll be covering in the next couple weeks. And then if we're sometimes for the interviews, we'll say like, hey, we're opening it up for questions for us to ask. So things like that.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me. That was a great time.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
I'm not a computer nerd. I prefer to be called a hacker.
Aren't you supposed to be a genius or something?
I can't get Jurassic Park back online without Dennis Nedry.
Incorporating all the latest technologies.
We shouldn't be here. And there's 5 dinosaurs.
How many Sarahs do you think are on this island?
So this week I reached out to our Twitter followers to ask everybody about their thoughts on the T-Rex from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Now we really don't have a ton of information on her as a character, aside from what we've seen on screen. You know, she was a giant predator in the prime of her life during Jurassic Park, and certainly showed signs of aging in Jurassic World. Let's see what came to mind for others. @mirrorimages_ with a Z says,
She, the T-Rex, looks bigger in Jurassic Park.
I agree. I think she does look a lot bigger in Jurassic Park, and I think that's due to her aging over time. You know, we've been away from Jurassic Park for 22 years now, and you know, maybe she didn't have enough food, or maybe she's just aging and her skin's tightening up. Who knows? But she definitely looks a little bit thinner in Jurassic World. @N7 Patrick says,
I hope she returns in the Jurassic World sequel.
Patrick also says,
awesome. Best Jurassic Park franchise character ever.
I got to agree. I hope she comes back, even though I don't think it's going to be too good for her if she comes back because of her age. And she is probably the best character in the series. You know, she's the hero turned villain, and you can't get much better than that because she saved the day multiple times already. @Sickle_Claw mentioned,
I thought she managed to hold her own quite well in the final fight, although she hadn't been out in over 10 years.
Yeah, man, I don't really know how she managed to win that battle. You know, she seemed to be much smaller and not as strong and older than the Indominus, so who really knows? I mean, you know, it's a little bit of movie magic, so let's just say since she was one of our favorite characters, there was nobody that was going to defeat her. @Complains Often puts it simply,
she's freaking beautiful.
You know what? I agree. That's all I'm going to say about that. Friend of the podcast, @Indian Marion, has another great response with,
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
# you're welcome.
You know, it is the mileage. She's been roaming around Isla Nublar for 30 years now, basically. She's got a lot of mileage on those feet. All right, I hope I'm not butchering this one. It's from @Gian9456, GIAN. So, this one says,
she's maybe 25 years old, but she fights so well. Could mean clone dinosaurs' lifespans are more enhanced than normal.
You've got a really good point there. You know, with the clone dinosaurs, we really have no idea how old they can get. You know, we might have a vague idea of how old a typical dinosaur can reach, but with the different DNA mixed between these dinosaurs, we just have no idea how long they'll go on for. So let's hope we got a few more years in her, and maybe we'll see her, you know, part ways with the franchise in the next episode. Over on Instagram, the _Raptor_trainer says,
love her. She's the best Jurassic Park, Jurassic World character.
Yep, just like I said before, I got to agree. She has to be probably the best character, maybe aside from Malcolm. Malcolm's pretty great. But if we're talking dinosaurs, this one takes the cake. I also got a few calls this week, so let's take a listen.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Justin Fidencio from Monster Films on YouTube. Like the podcast, and I saw you guys' tweet about calling and leaving a voicemail. Do you guys remember in the 90s, I was a kid growing up in the 90s, so Jurassic Park was my favorite thing growing up to watch and to pretend and play and all that, so I had tons of toys, but there was a field guide that Kodak put out in correlation with the second film. Do any of you guys remember that? I remember hanging on to that and using it to plot safaris in my backyard, so I don't have it anymore. I'm kind of bummed. I think I loved it a lot too. It was starting to rip, last I remember. But yeah, that was awesome. I can't remember where I got it. If it was anything to do with the ride. I just remember Kodak. It was put out by Kodak, and on one side they had the island, and then on the other side they had like a field guide where you could see all the different dinosaurs and how they sized up to each other, and I think maybe some technical information. So yeah, just thought I'd drop that on you, see if you remember that. Also, what's going on with the ride at Universal Studios? And they need to update that thing, and I think this new movie should be kicking the pants to do it. So last time I remember in my young adultness, that ride was just falling apart, and it was pretty awesome as a kid, but they just kind of let it go to waste. So, yep, Universal needs to step it up a notch. All right, guys, keep it up. Fan of the show, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Hey, Justin, you know the field guide sounded super familiar right when you mentioned it, but I just couldn't remember what it looked like. So, of course, I went over to Google and searched for it, and I came across some pictures, which I'll post to our Flickr page, but I just instantly remembered, and I'm going to have to go and search some of my old boxes to see if I have this thing around. You know, I remember so vividly loving the depictions of the dinosaurs on the field guide. Something about that pose of the baby T-Rex with a foot up, or the terrifying design of the raptors from The Lost World. I think those were the ones that really stuck out to me. And I really need to find these again because that map on the back was so awesome. You know, you always get to see the maps of Nublar, but, you know, it's nice to see the map of Sorna for once. And you also mentioned the Kodak sponsorship, and that's something I love about the older films. I have a few other collectible items, and they have the Kodak stamp on there, and I think it really helps to give it that retro feel that you want from the old memorabilia. So, you know, thanks, man. You really sparked my interest in this thing again, and, of course, now I need to find it. Thanks a lot. But as far as the ride goes, you know, I haven't been on it in a while either. And, you know, I don't know if you were specifically speaking of Orlando or the Hollywood attraction, but I've been on the Orlando one, but it's been since about 2006, I think. So I'm sure it's changed since then, but I don't specifically remember, unfortunately. But I do believe I'm going to get a chance to ride it again in December. And I'll have to come back with the trip report and let you all know how the dinosaurs are looking. But actually, come to think of it, didn't Jurassic World take place in December of 2015? Maybe I shouldn't go on the ride. Thanks, Justin.
Hey, I just want to say I love your podcast. I've been listening to it a lot lately, and I sure hope you the best or something. I don't know, I can't talk to it, but thank you for the podcast, and I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan myself, too, and hope you guys can have a good time with it. All right, bye.
Hey, man, thanks so much for calling in. We are having a great time putting this podcast together and intend to keep it running for a long time. Hopefully you can stick around with us as we lead up to yet another Jurassic film in 2018. You know, we truly appreciate all the kind words for the show, and we hope we can keep providing you with great content on all the Jurassic Park films. So feel free to call back anytime with any thoughts on the films or compliments on the podcast. I surely won't say no to those. Thanks. If anyone has anything to add to the podcast, I want to let you know this is truly a fan podcast that takes submissions from all the avid Jurassic Park fans. You can always submit your own thoughts either via email to JurassicParkPod@gmail.com, or you can call our voicemail line and leave us a message, like the ones you heard here today. The number is 732-825-7763. We hope to hear from you and add you to the next episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. Thanks for listening to the 16th episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. I want to thank Sabrina and Garret from I Know Dino, the Big Dinosaur Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to them on iTunes and follow them on Twitter, @I Know Dino. I also want to thank all the listeners who called into our voicemail this past week. It was great to hear from you. Also, a big thanks to everyone who expressed their thoughts on the T-Rex from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. If you want to find us, we are basically all over the internet now. Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Flickr. You can also listen to us via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podomatic, and YouTube. And we're usually spotted commenting on the Jurassic Park subreddit as Jurassic Park Podcast. All of the links to our web presence are found in our show notes, so take a look. And like always, I'm going to ask you again, if you haven't already, please do us a huge favor by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. It will seriously help us build our rankings and make it easier for fans like you to find us. If you want to get a hold of us, the easiest way is to tweet us @Jurassic Park Pod. Or you can email us with any news stories, MP3s, segment ideas, pictures, top 10s, or comments to JurassicParkPod@gmail.com. If you'd like to record something for the show, send it in to us and we'll feature it on an upcoming episode. And if you don't have any way to record, you can give our voicemail a call and leave us a message. The number is 732-825-7763. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Five minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.